Violet Evergarden is an impeccably crafted character. Her arc is effective, her struggles compelling, her emotions all too real. To portray someone gaining a greater level of emotional awareness, especially towards themselves as well as others, is no easy task. The progression has to feel natural, the inciting events have to be believable, and the emotional responses have to be reasonable, both within the narrative and also in how it is expressed visually and audibly. In my personal experience, there's been a plethora of times in which a character in a show was crying and pouring their heart out, and though within the context of the story it makes perfect sense, something about the manner in which it is conveyed, often the delivery of the crying itself, made it impossible to take seriously. Violet Evergarden skirts around these potential pitfalls with a seeming ease. The naturalness of her emotional development and realization of such is to the point that one might not even recognize just how much she's changed until the show reminds us of previous events. Yet it always feels like an adding on, a development, or in more poetic terms, a blossoming from who Violet is at her core. Her ability to categorize, comprehend, and become more open to emotions, both of herself and others, is built up gradually from a reasonable starting point. Violet may seem robotic and doll-like at her first introduction, but the show always makes sure we are aware of her emotional capacity. In a flashback scene, we see she is enthralled by the beauty of a bright green brooch, learning this new word and concept, beautiful, and expresses her feelings towards the Major's captivating eyes, how the brooch grabbed her attention because it reminds her of his eyes. Her attachment to the Major, her desire to understand love, and how she becomes undeterrable in her desire to become a doll, to learn what it is to understand and realize the emotions of others, show that that emotionality was always there, waiting, begging to be expressed. What better way to bring out the emotions of one person than for them to learn by meeting others? Humans are social creatures after all, and through the gaining of experience, connecting with others and bearing witness to their passions, one can have their own personal sensibilities heightened. The way Violet's experiences are presented is a wise balance between her perspective and the perspective of those she meets. We are able to get in Violet's headspace and better appreciate and understand her perception of the world around her and how that perception changes. But we're also given some more conventionally relatable characters with which to view Violet in the way she would be seen from an outsider's perspective. We are able to essentially have our cake and eat it too, feeling both the inherent strong emotions from the stories we bear witness to, as well as the heartfelt changes in Violet as her initially cold demeanor gradually melts away. Heartfelt would be my go-to description if I had to describe in one word why I enjoy Violet Evergarden so. Both the character and the show itself. There's a level of emotional honesty that, despite my coming attempts, is rather difficult to describe. The moments of strong emotional response come from a place that is deeply accepting. It's never a drawn-out, obnoxious, and utterly unnecessary lie, or an unreasonable conflict that causes the drama. Rather, when our characters, particularly Violet herself, break down into tears, it is often a deeply compelling acknowledgement of the sadness or conflict within themselves. The height of the show's effect on me came not out of the tragedy, but out of the moments of understanding, of compassion, and of love. As Violet's emotional responses begin to develop, it very realistically builds up to a point where it suddenly explodes like a great tidal wave, finally releasing all the emotional sensitivity that has been kept pent up, not out of choice, but out of her own inability to recognize and express her emotions. From this development results a heightened sense of empathy, which is brilliantly highlighted in episode 10. In this episode, we see Violet from the perspective of a young girl whose mother is deathly ill, and is having Violet write letters that are to be sent to her daughter every birthday after her passing. At this point, we see a sudden shift in Violet's character. Violet's developments up to this point have been so natural that at the outset of the episode, it seems bizarre when Violet is now acting much colder than we have grown accustomed to. Though she once again warms up to the little girl and expresses a great level of understanding and compassion for her, it does feel as if we have stepped backwards in Violet's development as a character. However, this is all setting up for her return from work, where in describing to her workmates the job she was tasked with, she begins to weep, through her sobs relating how difficult it was to withhold her tears and work, to stay strong despite knowing of the sorrowful situation the little girl Anne was persevering in. Embraced by the mother-like figure of Katorea, she lets the tears flow in a cathartic moment of empathy. It's okay to cry, it's okay to feel. Violet feels the burning sensation from her actions in the war, the inescapable emotional scars of the past. Yet Claudia's wise advice is not to try and outrun our past, but rather to move forward and make new memories. The effect of the people Violet meets upon her is matched only in her unforgettable effect on them. She may struggle with that which might be natural to others, but she really is trying. A sweetly illustrative picture of that being her forced yet genuine attempts to smile, and the payoff of seeing her greater ease in doing so as time passes is beyond description. The subtle touches, a mouth corner raised, a piercing stare, it is all deeply affecting thanks to every step we've taken along the way, getting to know Violet and the people throughout this fascinating setting. So when she finally can say, "Aishiteru," I love you, we know she truly understands its meaning, that this Violet has grown to match her name. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider sharing it around and perhaps hitting subscribe to stick around. It helps me a ton. While I've got you here, I'll also recommend checking out my second channel, Aspirations and Contemplations, where I do vlogs talking off the cuff about all sorts of subjects, and my podcast channel, Natsukashi, where I discuss old anime with a bunch of cool anitubers. If you're interested in following my thoughts on anime and pretty much everything, then follow me on Twitter at Core Reviews. With that said, I'll catch you all in the next one.